He was born a prince, trained as a fighter pilot, and now commands a $3 million estate in exile, while plotting the future of Iran. Reza Pahlavi isn't just a royal relic, he's a strategist with global allies and a billion-dollar legacy. From Potomac to Paris, his revolution is unfolding in silence and style. Subscribe now to Billionaire Story. This is a tale the regime doesn't want you to hear. Born to rule, from crowned heir to exiled prince. Before he spoke fluent English, before he commanded a $3 million estate in Potomac, before he became the face of Iran's democratic hopes, Reza Pahlavi was simply a child groomed to wear a crown. Born on October 31, 1960 in Tehran, Reza was the firstborn son of Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, the last Shah of Iran, and Queen Farah Diba. At just 9 years old, he was officially declared Crown Prince. His education took place not in a school, but in a palace wing built for royalty, surrounded by advisors, tutors, and military aides. Reza's childhood wasn't made of toys. It was built on strategy, protocol, and power. At 11, he flew a jet. At 12, he received his first pilot license, making him the youngest royal aviator in Iran's modern history. His skill in the cockpit wasn't ceremonial, it was symbolic. A boy prepared to lead both in the air and on the ground, he embodied a monarchy determined to modernize, westernize, and centralize. But destiny had different plans. In 1979, everything changed. The Islamic Revolution erupted, sweeping through the streets of Tehran with chants of defiance and burning portraits of the Shah. Reza, just 18, was training at Reese Air Force Base in Texas, thousands of miles from home, flying T-38 fighter jets. The prince who once soared above Iran's skies suddenly had no country left to defend. The Pahlavi family was exiled. From Egypt to Morocco to the United States, they drifted across continents. But while others mourned the fall of a dynasty, Reza recalibrated. He immersed himself in Western education, completing a degree in political science at the University of Southern California. He mastered English and French. He studied democracy, not as an idea, but as a replacement for the crown he lost. And yet, he never stopped calling himself a prince, not out of ego, but out of duty. Today, that same boy, now 64 years old, leads a $100 million movement to dismantle the very regime that cast him out. The child of gold halls now moves through marble mansions in exile, but his eyes are still fixed on Tehran. Comment the real Prince of Persia if you believe Reza Pahlavi was born to lead a nation, just not in the way history expected. Jet fuel and strategy, Reza's American reinvention. When the Peacock throne collapsed in 1979, Reza Pahlavi didn't flee into hiding. He flew straight into reinvention. Exiled but not broken, he traded palace gates for US air bases and imperial duties for cockpit drills. At Reese Air Force Base in Texas, the young Crown Prince trained on T-37S and T-38S, mastering the skies with the same precision his father once used to command the streets of Tehran. But the revolution wasn't just a loss of country, it was a recalibration of identity. At just 19, Reza wasn't chasing vengeance, he was chasing understanding, and the battleground would shift from fighter jets to political theory. After briefly attending Williams College and the American University in Cairo, Reza completed his political science degree via distance learning at the University of Southern California. It was more than academia, it was preparation. He immersed himself in Enlightenment philosophy, constitutional law, and democratic theory. The goal was clear, not to reclaim a crown, but to rebuild a broken nation on new terms. Fluent in English, French, and Persian, Reza became an unusual voice in exile, one that the West could understand, the Diaspora could trust, and the regime in Tehran could not ignore. During the 1980s, he received behind-the-scenes media support from Western intelligence circles, including CIA-linked platforms, to broadcast messages of reform to the Iranian people. His voice, refined, calm, measured, became a beacon in a region growing increasingly volatile. This wasn't palace nostalgia, it was insurgent strategy. Reza's transformation didn't stop with academics or diplomacy. He toured US universities, delivered lectures at Yale and UConn, and laid the groundwork for a government in exile. In media interviews, he spoke not of royal return, but of freedom of speech, gender equality, and religious pluralism. These weren't slogans, they were ideological weapons in a decades-long campaign to outlast the Ayatollahs. And still, he never denied who he was. Reza Pahlavi carried the weight of his surname into every room. But unlike monarchs before him, he didn't use it to dominate. He used it to unify, to rebrand royalty not as a ruler, but as a transitional steward for democracy. By the time the world had begun forgetting the Pahlavi dynasty, Reza had already turned exile into strategy and privilege into a platform for revolutionary purpose. Inside the $3.1 million mansion where revolution meets royalty, tucked behind manicured hedges in the elite suburb of Potomac, Maryland, stands a mansion that looks at first glance like any other luxury home in America's political heartland. But this isn't just another estate with vaulted ceilings and imported finishes. This is the operational center of Reza Pahlavi, the exiled crown prince of Iran. And it's worth more than just the $3.1 million stamped on its deed. Purchased in 1996 for $1.25 million, the property has undergone nearly $2 million in renovations over the past 2 decades. Today, it's more than a home. It's a hybrid fortress, part sanctuary, part strategy hub, and entirely symbolic. Every room tells a story, not just of exile, but of preparation. The main floor boasts a formal reception hall, flanked by bookshelves heavy with Persian history and Western philosophy. Deep stained wood panels give the space a presidential tone, while the chandelier overhead throws light across framed photographs of world leaders, royal lineage, and the occasional protest march. It's not decor, it's narrative control. Downstairs, the lower level transforms from domestic to tactical. A full guest suite sits adjacent to a private bar and cinema room with stadium-style seating, a space used for both entertaining and screening political broadcasts. The house's HVAC system is isolated. Communications lines are discreetly armed, and at its core, a private study, nicknamed the Studio, functions as a recording space where statements to the Iranian diaspora and international press are produced under total confidentiality. Upstairs, the bedrooms are warm but disciplined. Persian rugs run across hardwood floors. The master suite opens onto a private balcony overlooking a secured backyard with perimeter cameras and motion detectors. This is not indulgence. This is a state of readiness. Located just miles from Washington, D.C., Reza's residence is strategically positioned, close enough to diplomats, journalists, and policymakers, but distant enough to preserve privacy and autonomy. The neighborhood is quiet, but inside, every decision echoes across borders. To the casual eye, it's a house fit for a royal retiree, but for those who know, it's something else. A command center. The Shah's legacy, supercars, palaces, and billion-dollar wealth. Before the fall of the peacock throne, before the revolution swept through Tehran's streets, Iran's royal family lived in a world that most people couldn't even dream of. And at the center of it all stood one man, Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, the last Shah of Iran, father of Reza Pahlavi and architect of a personal empire that rivaled the GDP of small nations. In 1980, his wealth was estimated at $2 billion. Adjusted for inflation and interest-bearing assets today, that figure hovers near $7.2 billion. But this wasn't just a number, it was a lifestyle. A monarchy gilded in oil money, spread across continents, hidden behind foundations and fortified walls. Start with the supercars. The Shah didn't collect cars, he curated dominance. Lamborghini Countach, Espada, Miura SV, Mercedes-Benz 600, Pullmans, and a dazzling 1930 Pierce Arrow Model A. That Pierce Arrow alone once cost the equivalent of 1/8 of Iran's national budget at the time. These weren't garage trophies, they were declarations of absolute power. Protected by SAVAK agents, each vehicle was custom-built, tested for imperial-level performance, and delivered like military hardware. Many of these cars now rest inside Iran's Historical Vehicle Museum in Karaj, silent relics of an empire that no longer exists. Yet the image remains, a king in tailored suits, stepping into armored luxury, while the country watched from behind barricades. But the legacy extended far beyond chrome and horsepower. Through the Pahlavi Foundation, later renamed the Alavi Foundation, the Shah controlled massive real estate holdings. The Hilton Hotel in Tehran, an office tower on Manhattan's Fifth Avenue valued at $14.5 million in 1975. This foundation, exempt from taxes, was not only a vehicle of influence, it was a fortress of liquidity, with estimated assets surpassing $3 billion at its peak. For Reza Pahlavi, this legacy is not just historical, it's foundational. He may walk in democratic circles and speak of freedom, but the empire he inherits was born of extravagance, strategy, and consolidated wealth. That fortune still echoes through his campaigns, estates, and media presence today. Comment Royal Empire if you think the Shah's hidden wealth still fuels Reza Pahlavi's global influence. Dynasty reimagined, Yasmin Pahlavi and the new generation. In the gilded shadows of exile, where power no longer wears a crown but whispers through foundations and forums, Yasmin Pahlavi emerges, not as a consort of nostalgia, but as the architect of legacy. Married to Reza Pahlavi in 1986 in a discreet ceremony in Greenwich, Connecticut, she brought more than elegance to the exiled royal family. She brought discipline, law, and the voice of a new generation of Iranian womanhood. Born in Tehran in 1968 and raised in the United States, Yasmin Atimad Amini carries the dual identity of refugee and reformer. She holds a degree in political science and a Juris Doctor from George Washington University, credentials rarely found in royal circles. For over a decade, she served as a lawyer in Washington, D.C., specializing in child advocacy. Later, she founded the Foundation for the Children of Iran, an institution that blended humanitarian outreach with the unspoken message of royal responsibility. Her presence in the Pahlavi household is not ceremonial, it is strategic. In interviews, she speaks fluently about civil society, international law, and human rights. On social media, she commands attention with posts that move between family life and political insight, amassing a digital audience that, according to estimates, generates $15,000 to $20,000 a month in engagement and endorsements. Together, Reza and Yasmin have raised 3 daughters: Princess Noor, born in 1992 in Washington, D.C., Princess Iman, born in 1993, and Princess Farah, born in 2004. The girls were raised in a blend of Ivy League ambition and Persian tradition, fluent in English and Persian, trained in diplomacy and civic discourse. Noor, the eldest, has already begun carving her public image in New York. She speaks at conferences, participates in cultural diplomacy, and represents a new breed of royal, media-savvy, globally educated, but deeply tied to ancestral legacy. Iman and Farah, while younger, are groomed in the same mold, a blend of poise, education, and quiet preparation. What emerges is not a monarchy in waiting, but a dynasty repurposed. The Pahlavis are no longer rulers in palaces, but they are still players in politics. And through Yasmin and her daughters, the legacy of Iran's imperial past continues, not in gold or marble, but in law, language, and leadership. Trump's royal ace, how meager became a dynasty weapon. In the geopolitical theater of 2025, few alliances are as startling or as calculated as the bond between Reza Pahlavi and Donald J. Trump. One is a Western-educated crown prince in exile, the other a former US president turned populist kingmaker. Together, they've forged a narrative that blends nostalgia, nationalism, and regime change rhetoric into one potent message: make Iran great again. It began as a slogan. In late June 2025, Trump revived MEGA on his social media platform, suggesting that regime change in Iran was not only acceptable, it was overdue. The phrase went viral among Iranian dissidents, particularly those waving the Pahlavi-era flag and chanting for Reza's return. Overnight, a forgotten prince became the face of Trump-era foreign policy in exile. Reza didn't shy away. In interviews with the New York Post, he praised Trump's maximum pressure campaign, calling it the most effective Western policy against the Islamic Republic since its founding. He openly criticized the Biden administration's attempts to re-engage diplomatically with Tehran, positioning himself as a hawkish voice in sync with American conservatives. Behind the scenes, reports emerged of private meetings between Reza and Trump advisors, discussing strategy, sanctions, and transitional governance. For Trump, Reza offered something rare: An Iranian face that didn't represent extremism, but Western compatibility. For Reza, Trump represented more than power, he offered global amplification. This alignment, though politically risky, reshaped how Washington viewed Reza Pahlavi. No longer just a nostalgic royalist, he became a tactical instrument in the broader push to destabilize the Islamic Republic. The crown may be gone, but in Trump's orbit, Reza became something else entirely. A symbolic weapon, polished in exile and deployed in the court of global opinion. The $100 million revolution, Iran Prosperity Project uncovered. While Iran's regime tightens its grip at home, far from Tehran, a different kind of operation is quietly unfolding, crafted not in mosques or ministries, but in think tanks, Zoom calls and the shadow corridors of Western capitals. At the center stands Reza Pahlavi, and behind him a war chest estimated at over $100 million. Dubbed the Iran Prosperity Project, this initiative is more than a political wish list. It's a fully mapped blueprint for regime change, complete with 100-day transition plans, economic stabilization proposals, a provisional governance framework, and strategies for military defection. The project is the culmination of decades in exile, backed by private donors, diaspora billionaires, and sympathetic Western institutions. Confidential documents obtained by outlets such as The Telegraph and Axios reveal a staggering level of detail. Ministries pre-assigned to exiled technocrats, rapid deployment of food subsidies, and the legal reintegration of Iran into global trade systems. There are even contingency plans for managing fallout from the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, should splinter factions resist the post-clerical order. But the most controversial element lies in the project's funding network. Sources suggest several pro-monarchy Iranian-American organizations have funneled tens of millions into this effort, disguised as civil society grants, media production, and humanitarian outreach. Critics warn of external interference. Supporters see it as a long overdue act of reclamation. Reza himself has not denied the existence of the plan. In recent interviews, he described it as a framework for national recovery, emphasizing the need for unity, secular governance, and human rights. But make no mistake, the Iran Prosperity Project isn't about reforming the regime, it's about replacing it, completely and irrevocably. For the first time since 1979, the exiled prince isn't just advocating, he's preparing to govern. The most dangerous man Iran can't touch. He doesn't hold office, he doesn't command an army, and yet his name sends chills through the corridors of Tehran. Reza Pahlavi, the son of the last Shah, has become something far more threatening than a monarch in waiting. He's a symbol of return, of resistance, of reckoning. From a $3.1 million estate in Maryland, he orchestrates a campaign of ideas, media, and movement building. Unlike the clerics in Qom, Reza wears no robe. His uniform is a tailored suit, his weapon is the Western press, and his battlefield is digital. His interviews are translated into Persian within hours. His speeches circulate through encrypted telegram groups inside Iran. His mere appearance at conferences triggers state-run denunciations. But what terrifies the regime most isn't his words. It's his survival. For over 4 decades, they have tried to erase him. Yet Reza Pahlavi persists, alive, eloquent, and globally legitimized. Iranian state media refers to him as a Zionist tool, a CIA puppet, even the son of a tyrant, but they cannot silence the whispers inside their own borders that say he might be the last hope. While Khamenei speaks of martyrdom, Reza speaks of modernity. While Iran jails journalists, Reza live streams press conferences. And while the Islamic Republic burns American flags, Reza calls for alliances with Western democracies. He has no passport from Tehran, but he walks freely through Paris, Washington, and Geneva. He signs no decrees, yet he influences millions. That paradox of a prince without a throne, shaping a nation without permission, is exactly what makes him dangerous. Not because he demands power, but because the people might give it to him willingly. Comment unstoppable if you believe no border, no bullet, and no regime can silence Reza Pahlavi. From royal privilege to political defiance, Reza Pahlavi's life is a blueprint for modern insurgency, fueled by oil wealth, Western alliances, and unwavering ambition. He's no longer the forgotten prince. He's the man reshaping the conversation on Iran's future from behind guarded gates and golden chandeliers. While others negotiate, he prepares to lead. If this story gave you a new perspective, hit that like button and subscribe to Billionaire's Story, where history, luxury and power collide. The next video might just reveal the world's next royal disruptor.